Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Nimrod Pod. I am your embattled host, Lou Stump, alongside my brother-in-arms, Chet Lifkit, reporting to you live from the Nimrod Central Command Center. We have an action-packed news blitz for you lined up today. But before we get started, make sure you're following at the Nimrod Pod on X, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and at Nimrod Pod on YouTube and Instagram. Like and share this episode to start the chain reaction, and leave a comment letting us know what you think of the show. As always, this episode is brought to you by Primal Core. GoPrimalCore.com delivers clinically backed, maximally dosed formulas to boost free testosterone, sharpen mental clarity, and unleash peak performance. Unlock your primal edge by clicking the link in our bio and using code LOU20, that's LOU20, to get 20% off your entire order. Now, let's dive into the news. Although this is the craziest time to be alive, this kind of felt like a slow news week, and I think it's largely the result of a massive disinformation campaign to hide the truth from the American people. There is clearly mass suppression of the war in the media. I mean, if you turn on cable news, they're not even talking about the war, but if they are, it's warmongering boomer slop. If you scroll on social media, you'll see thousands of conflicting news reports and AI videos related to the war. So you still really don't have an idea of what's actually going on unless you know who the few reliable news sources are. And even then, our best and brightest pundits are struggling to sift through the lies and misinformation. Are you catching this same vibe, Chet?
100%, Lou. And it's important for all you Nimrods out there to remember that the Nimrod Pod, is the only source of truth in the world. We are the only location where you can find the best takes, the facts on all the situations. All those usual pundits on the right wing, they are losing the grasp on the narrative. So this definitely signals a shift into a new age of the information war, where the establishment that we see, the neocons, the Zionists, they know that they're backed against the wall, and they're willing to take any means necessary to get on the right side of this war again. So I'm excited to see what happens in the coming weeks.
Precisely, Chet. And I'm thinking, honestly, if we want our clips to get to the top of the algorithm, we should probably come out as Zionist neocons. I think this is our time to pronounce ourselves real megas, M-I-G-A. Real mega roll call. Welcome to the Nimrod Pod, home of the megas. Mega time, megas only.
There's
you
only
yourself
one
a mega?
There's only one country and people that I'm loyal to, and that is the state of Israel. Because Israel has a right to exist. Bibi Netanyahu is the strongest leader on the planet. And they're such lovely people. They're such lovely people that I need to support them. Plus, the Bible says so. So, Zionism all the way. Please, Elon Trump, put us at the top of the algorithm. Thank you very much.
Mr. Netanyahu, tear down that wall. Rebuild the temple. That's exactly what we need. Blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, blame it on Iran, rebuild the third temple, usher in the Antichrist, fulfill the prophecy, and basically screw Jesus. I think that's the message. So yes, we are anti-Christian, we are Zionists, we are neocons, we're warmongering psychopaths. And at the end of the day, we're just a couple real megas trying to have a nice conversation. Can a mega live? Can a mega live? We're about to find out. All right, so let's start off with what might be the biggest scandal in the post-World War II era. I'm talking bigger than Watergate, bigger than the Russian collusion hoax. We're talking about Joe motherfrickin' Kent. So last Tuesday, March 17th, Joe Kent resigned from his position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. I'll read his X post. After much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Effective today, March 17th. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. And it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. It's been an honor serving under President Trump, D&I Gabbard, and leading the professionals at NCTC. May God bless America. Chet, what were your initial reactions when you saw this announcement from the great Joe Kent?
So I'm initially skeptical of just about everything, which I was with this, because while it's the right thing to say, we hear the right thing all the time, and we're often proven wrong by those people. But I just couldn't seem to put my finger on what Joe Kent could possibly gain from this revelation, from making this statement. You know, he did the rounds on the podcast circuit. I don't think he's selling anything. I don't think he's promoting a brand at all, because obviously this anti-Israel sentiment, especially if you venture online every once in a while, is in. It's the new trend. So we want to make sure that we're disciplined and we don't have grifters coming in saying the right things, taking everybody's money and eventually leaving. But I can't seem to find what I think Joe Kent could be possibly gaining from this. So I think, based on that and the reaction from the people that we don't like, that this is just a genuine guy who finally decided to speak the truth. And I think that's big for the America First movement. I think that's an inspiration for other people in office. That's an inspiration for everybody on the ground, people that are thinking about running for office. So I like it. I like the guy.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about this all the time. We have to reward politicians for good behavior. At the end of the day, every single conservative at one point held slightly neocon values, at one point supported Israel. I mean, at least even in the past 3 years, most people supported Israel because they didn't really understand what that meant. Nobody really understood the stranglehold Israel had on America, and those that did were demonized, and they were ostracized from society. Now we're having to apologize to those people. Those people are being vindicated, and they're rising to prominence with the American populace, and that's just the truth. And what Joe Kent did benefits him in no way. He separated himself, he distanced himself from the Trump administration. He distanced himself not just from the administration, the people in it, but the lobbies and the money that funds them and the RNC. So if he ever wants to run for political office again, the establishment isn't going to help him. In fact, they're going to campaign against him. In fact, if he ever runs for office again, he will get the Thomas Massie treatment. And if his public sentiment isn't positive enough, if the American people don't love him enough like they do Thomas Massie, he'll never have a chance to get in office again. So he's losing support of the Trump administration. He's losing support of the big money interests, the lobbies, the corporate interests, and he's allying with the American people and the independent media. In essence, he's clinging to the largest voices in independent media for his dear life, because his entire career has been in the armed forces, has been in politics. And he just kind of ostracized himself from that entire political sphere. And to be honest, he's not really doing the rounds. He went on Tucker. He was literally at Tucker's house when he made that post because he was fearful for his life, and he needed to make sure the truth got out for his own safety. So he goes on Tucker because Tucker is MAGA. He is America First. He's what MAGA should be, honestly. He is where the Conservative Party will go regardless of what Trump wants in the post-Trump era. So he goes on Tucker Carlson, and he goes on the Sean Ryan show because Sean Ryan is giving a massive middle finger to the Israeli lobby, to the administration. Say what you want. Obviously, this guy's former CIA. Can we trust him? I don't know, but we can certainly trust him on this Israel issue. He's not pushing propaganda. I know more than half of his interviews are unbearable because they're 5 hours long, and they're typically someone that is just spewing absolute CIA bullshit. But in this case, he's one of the biggest voices in independent media, regardless of how political you are, or how involved you are, or how much you keep up with the news. So he's getting exposed to a massive audience of regular Americans who think like us. So he goes on Tucker Carlson, he goes on Sean Ryan, and then he does Mark Levin's show because Mark Levin is a piece of shit scumbag mega. Like us, he's a fellow mega, a fellow neocon warmongering mega, and basically just has an unbearable conversation where Joe Kent just rolls him through the mud and Mark Levin just keeps talking over him because Joe Kent, he makes him call in to his radio show. So you can already barely hear him. He's constantly muting Joe Kent so you can't even hear him talk instead of speaking face to face on his, primetime Fox News TV show. So I wouldn't say he's doing the rounds, but he's certainly going where he needs to go. What I'd love to see is for him to go on InfoWars and speak to Alex Jones. And even more so, I'd love to see him on Joe Rogan because that exposes him to the mainstream audience. Obviously, if you're tapped in, you're watching Tucker. And there are some normies that watch Sean Ryan, but largely it's people who are interested in politics and interested in conspiracies. But if you want to get like the mainstream regular bro who has absolutely no idea what's going on in the news, but will still listen, you go on Joe Rogan. I think that is the difference maker. I just hope and pray it's in the works. I have no evidence. I have no proof, but I'll actually drop it. You know what? Breaking news. The Nimrod Pod at the Nimrod Pod on X is breaking news that Joe Kent will be going on the Joe Rogan Experience within the next 2 weeks. I think it's a large enough time span to where we will be vindicated. You heard it here, folks. First, folks, bookmark this podcast. So at the end of the day, Joe Kent's gone through his ups and downs. He has been pro-Israel in the past, but he's not right now. And now's the most important time to be pro-Israel. He's distancing himself from the big money, from the establishment, from the neocons, from the Trump admin. So let's give him a chance. And this doesn't mean we just make him our supreme leader today without any further vetting, but this is his peace offering to the American people. And we should certainly celebrate him because he is an exemplary American. I mean, this guy was deployed like over a dozen times, I think, for like combat situations in the Middle East, which is super impressive. Clearly former CIA, whatever. I mean, I think there's plenty of people that are former CIA. Sean Ryan was former CIA. How much of that is nefarious? I don't know. But I think there's plenty of normal people in the agencies that regret what they did and come out as populists. Let's give the guy a chance. I mean, his wife was killed by ISIS. And then our president goes on the news when asked about Joe Kent, and he says, this guy was totally unqualified. He knew nothing about security. I looked at him. I said, wow, that guy doesn't know security. And then I hired him. Then you hired him. So if you hire this guy who knows nothing about security, you should be impeached for putting in someone who's not qualified to run our National Counterterrorism Center. And otherwise, you're just a fucking moron, and you should also be impeached for that same reason. Donald Trump. And then he goes after the guy for losing in Washington in one of the bluest districts in a margin that was so much closer than Trump. I believe Joe Kent was within like 3 or 4 points. Trump lost by at least 16 points. So who's the real winner? Who's the real loser? Like, Trump has no idea what he's talking about. Susie Weil vets every single endorsement that he gives, so it's total horse crap. And then he goes, and to be honest, after his wife died, he got married a little too soon. Trump, how many times have you been married and divorced and remarried? And you're going after a guy whose wife was brutally murdered by ISIS and gets remarried by the grace of God so that he has someone to take care of his children. Eat a fat bag of dicks, you orange scumbag. I feel like a liberal. I feel like I'm on CNN in 2016. I feel like a fucking liberal, but this guy is a big orange dumbass. Do you agree, Chet?
Listen, Lou, I am a liberal. And while I'm a Zionist and a neocon, I'm also a liberal. So I feel the same way. But that's exactly what I was going to say. Trump wants to talk about him remarrying, I think it was 4 years after his wife was killed by ISIS. And then he's the one who was, what was it, the hush money thing? That was the only thing that Democrats could prove he did wrong before that 2024 election cycle. So I don't think he's speaking from a place where he should be. You know, it's not an issue that he has the moral high ground on. And also, yes, if he hired him after deciding that he didn't know anything about security, then it's just a bad look all around. Either he's lying right now, which is the truth, or he's telling the truth right now and he made a mistake on purpose in the past. So it's absolutely impossible. So awful, awful situation. Trump could have played this way better. He could have just kept his mouth shut. It's not like he had to say anything. It's not like he had to loudmouth about his wife. And by the way, who funded ISIS? Who funded ISIS? Israel did. Who has ISIS never attacked? They only attacked Muslim countries. They never attacked Israel. So maybe the fact that Joe Kent's wife died due to this force, this military force, has something to do with the reason that he started looking into the deeper files of the CIA, or started down this road and researching. So, everything happens for a reason, but I totally think that he was right to get remarried after a few years. It's unrealistic to expect people to act like they're in a fantasy romance movie and never remarry. It's not practical for real life. So I don't have any problems with the guy, and I'm definitely gonna queue up that Tucker episode to see what he really has to say.
And this might be like the most important interview of our lifetimes. It's just packed with invaluable information. And a peek behind the curtain, the fact that this guy is in charge of national security. He's in charge of counterterrorism for the United States of America. And he's literally telling us that Israel is making the decisions for us, for our president that we legally and lawfully elected. Like, that should be of concern. And this should remind you of why our country got to where it is today. And it's because of Israel. The last president to oppose Israel was John F. Kennedy, and he was brutally assassinated at the Grassy Knoll in downtown Dallas. So there is a high price to pay for opposing Israel. And that is why we have been occupied for the past 60 to 70 years, and it's absolutely sickening. Another question I have for you, Chet, and I'll kind of flesh it out before I pass it over to you, is can we trust anyone in the administration? Are they redeemable? And, this resignation from Joe Kent came just last week, and I would say he certainly is redeemable. There's folks like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK that we thought were the good ones, but haven't resigned yet. And, RFK is so far removed from the war, but you could say the glyphosate ruling was something that he should have resigned over. RFK Jr. is one thing. Tulsi Gabbard isn't. Like, her office is in charge of giving the president his daily brief. And something really interesting in the Tucker Carlson interview with Joe Kent is that apparently they would package up this briefing, but they wouldn't actually deliver it to the president. Like, they wouldn't hand it to him. They wouldn't recite it for him. Like, it was given to someone in the White House, who then took whatever they want from that, manipulated it, and handed it to the president. And he refused to give any names because he said he thinks it's best for him right now, as a guy who's under investigation by the FBI, which we'll get to in a second here, if he doesn't name names and start more problems than he already has, because he doesn't want to be attacked by a weaponized government, a weaponized DOJ, and that's exactly what we're starting to see happen. So, Chet, is Tulsi Gabbard redeemable? Joe Kent resigned a week ago. She still hasn't resigned. She hasn't really made a firm stance in opposition to Joe Kent, or a firm stance to defend the president. Do you think she's redeemable? If so, what are the terms?
First of all, I might not be ear to the streets, but I haven't heard much from Tulsi Gabbard in a while, especially not about this. So if that's by design, she's a smart woman. She's a smart woman. And in general, I think that it's going to be hard for people to trust people that want to jump the ship on this administration, because while they can leave, that's action number one. They can say anything they want to try and pick up this wave, this momentum of young Americans who want to see something else. They can try and pick that up, but we need to see action first. They need to put their foot down while they're in the position. They need to oppose any decision that's putting a foreign country over America. That's what I think somebody needs to do if they want to secure a vote in 2028, or if they want to start a political revolution in DC. We need to see them take action while they're in office, because they're already in there. And it's hard to get in office again if we splinter the right wing in America into 5 different factions. We're just going to end up with Gavin Newsom in the office. So, action first, then I can begin to trust somebody.
Certainly. And you said I haven't heard from Tulsi in a while, and you're right. And another very interesting thing that Joe Kent just kind of threw in there as a little nugget during the interview is that all those who oppose the war have been gatekept from war discussions, and really gatekept from the president. The president's circle's gotten really tight, and it's all the wrong people. It's all the warmongering neocons. I don't love J.D. Vance, and I don't want him to run 2028, and I have no interest in him being my president, but he's not even really a prominent presence in those discussions. It is Mark Levin's coming to the White House every week and probably giving Trump an OTPHJ under the Oval Office desk. We have Marco Rubio. We have Pete Hegseth, who wants to rebuild the Third Temple, Allahu Akbar. We have Stephen Miller, Jew, who I don't even know if he's really in those discussions either. We have Susie Wiles, who allegedly has cancer. She probably does. That's terrible. Cancer's bad. But she's also the one that is conducting opposition research on General Flynn and all of his allies, all the America First grassroots patriots, so that they can weaponize the government against our populist leaders before Trump even leaves office. So, yeah, all these people around Trump are pro-Netanyahu. He has Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, leading the negotiations right now in, I believe, Pakistan and somewhere else in the Middle East or Western Asia. Why is his son-in-law leading these discussions? Well, it's because he has an uncle figure named Benjamin Netanyahu, who is literally slept in his own house, in his own bed, actually. So, he's actually come in town to stay at the Kushners and slept in Jared's bed, because that's how close they are. And this is the guy you have leading negotiations? I want to show this really interesting post. Joe Kent presents a very thoughtful solution to the war. And I'll read it, then we can talk through it. Step 1 in de-escalation must be restraining the Israelis. Otherwise, all efforts to negotiate will follow this pattern. POTUS publicly announces de-escalation. Israel takes major strikes to destroy the negotiations and in turn weaken our ability to negotiate. The war accelerates. This is so true. This is so accurate. We see Trump saying, we're actually going to extend the 48-hour deadline 5 more days because negotiations are going great. And then Iran says, you're not talking to anybody, which harps back to that conversation about the misinformation and the propaganda and the bullshit and the posturing that we're getting out of the administration. But at the end of the day, even if Trump does have a dialogue with Iran and they are moving towards a diplomatic solution, a solution towards peace and a ceasefire, Israel doesn't want that to happen. Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel will do whatever it takes to prolong the war and keep the United States involved. So the only solution is for us to decouple from Israel, is for us to go hands off, laissez-faire. You deal with it, because Israel cannot conduct regime change in Iran without the United States. They cannot. It's impossible. They can defend themselves from total annihilation without a doubt. They have incredible intelligence apparatus, incredible military capabilities. They can totally defend themselves, but they cannot conduct a full regime change in Iran, a country where we decapitated their high priest, their religious leader, not even their political leader, their religious leader. Like they have a fatwa now to go down with the ship and do whatever it takes. There's over 90 million of them. Over 90 million people that live in this country. And Israel is the size of like New Jersey or Maryland. So Israel cannot conduct regime change without the United States. They need to keep us in. This is for both religious reasons, as we've talked about many times on the podcast, and as Tucker Carlson has talked about many times, but it's also Benjamin Netanyahu's selfish political purposes as well. Former head of the Knesset and interim president of Israel was on Tucker last week, and he said, post-October 7th, I do agree that Israel has a right to exist, and in many ways they should defend themselves. But what Benjamin Netanyahu's doing here, what he was doing in Gaza, and what he's now doing after the alleged peace agreement in Gaza, in Iran, is keeping himself in power, because the more war they have, the less investigations they can do, the less hearings they can do, because Benjamin Netanyahu, up to October 7th, was in deep trouble. He was probably going to be impeached, probably going to be removed from office, and possibly even put in jail. And the capital, Israel, was being stormed on October 7th. So how do you stay in power if you're an extremely unpopular president who's in big trouble? You declare martial law, and you become a wartime prime minister, and that's exactly what he's doing. So he is selfishly prolonging the war to stay in power and to gain favor of the Israeli public, because, people in Israel, they only read Hebrew news. Hebrew news is controlled by who? Maybe the people that speak it. What do they look like? What do they sound like? I don't know. Let's not go there. But the media is manipulating them. And even up to this point, like there is such a vast swath of political ideologies coming out of Israel, and probably more liberal than anything. Like this fellow who was the interim president and former head of the Knesset is extremely liberal, but he's anti-war. And most Israelis were anti-war until October 7th. Until you start killing the babies and kidnapping the young women, then it's like plus 90% approval rating for war. Now, all of the people of Israel want war, and they want more war, and they actually can't get enough war because they're the only people that benefit from the war. At least they think. I mean, in my opinion, they're racing towards their ultimate destruction and a total annihilation. And no more Israel existing, I think. Feel free to jump in here, Chad. I know I'm yapping.
Oh, Lou, I just wanted to agree with you here. But I have a question for you. You don't want the world to end in a nuclear holocaust? What are you, Lou? Some kind of anti-Semite?
You know what? I think you're completely right. And I'll say it to myself. Shut up, anti-Semite! Racist! Shut up, racist! Yes, real MIGAs only. Activating warmongering neocon blinders. This is where we are. The horse blinders are on. All I care about is death, destruction, blood, and pain. Pain that I can feel down in deepest parts of my plump plums. Getting them all swollen. Blistered.
I gotta agree, Lou. I got the blinders on. I'm full speed ahead. I'm enlisting. I'm coming back in a goddamn coffin with a flag on top of it. For Israel, for Netanyahu to stay in power and stay out of jail. But what I want to say here is Joe Kent is objectively correct about this situation. Objectively. There's no arguing about what's happening. The Israelis aren't being restrained. Every time Trump talks about peace agreements and negotiations, we see new strikes from Israel on Iran. So that's what's happening. And if we can't get a hold of them, if we can't figure out how to restrain them and how to sit them down, this war is going to go on forever, and it is going to accelerate. But my question to the administration is really, at what point do they see what's going on and just bite the bullet? I can't imagine that there must be so much blackmail on everybody that they can't just turn around and say, you guys are done. You guys are done. You've been playing with the United States for so long. I thought Trump was a big ego guy. So why is he letting these people ruin his peace talks? Why is he letting them make himself ruin his presidential promises that he was campaigning on? It doesn't seem like something he would do. And maybe I'm just a moron and I got tricked, which I definitely did, but I didn't think it was to this scale. So I don't see this going on for too much longer without somebody speaking up and saying, we really got to get a hold on these guys. And I don't doubt that they're doing that behind closed doors now, but it's going to come out. It's going to start happening. The people in this country are pretty much all on the same page. Every time you see a Zionist neocon post on X or on Instagram, it's flooded with people who are just clowning on them, making fun of them, dragging them in the mud. It's glorious to watch. So at a certain point, can't they just look and realize that the tide has turned and that the tide is turning even harder right now because of this, and just take that and run with it? I think that's a success story if I've ever heard one. But I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Exactly. Well, what they're doing now is the uniparty establishment. I don't even want to say like left or right, Republican, Democrat, but the Republicans are in power. So we'll call it the GOP establishment, is deploying the same tactics that were used against Republicans post-2016. They're now going after anyone who was America First that opposes the war and opposes Zionism. And what we're seeing now, Tucker posts this 3 to 5 minute video saying that he's discovered that CIA has been reading his texts in order to frame him for a crime. And now he's under the investigation by the FBI in 2 separate investigations. So there's 2 open investigations that have been threatened against him by the FBI strictly for his opposition to war in Iran. Just like Charlie Kirk, opposition to war in Iran. Imagine if that guy was still around. And right after Tucker posts this, breaking news all over the place, Joe Kent is now under the investigation by the FBI for allegedly leaking classified information. And Laura Ingraham reports that the investigation predates his departure. And you know what? I'll play this short clip just so you can understand the absolute slop propaganda that is being told to boomers about the great, brave Joe Kent.
Sources are saying that Joe Kent, the former director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center, this is from Semaphore, he just resigned. He's now under FBI investigation for allegedly leaking classified information. And the investigation predates his departure. Congressman, your reaction to that tonight? Wow.
Well, there's a lot there, and I think that we need to let this investigation play out, but we shouldn't tolerate any leakers in the administration, particularly regarding classified national security interests and information. So we'll let this play out and see where it goes. But if he was leaking, he ought to be held accountable just like anybody else would be.
Now, 5 minutes ago, he seemed to think that Iran was a big threat, and then suddenly that threat went away. It was very odd. Congressman, thank you very much.
5 minutes ago, he used to think Iran was a big threat, and then that thought went away. Okay, Laura Ingraham, why would there be an open investigation on Joe Kent before he even resigned? Like, how could this investigation predate the man, but he's still in his position? Oh, I'll tell you why. So what Laura Ingraham just broke to us is that there are active investigations into America First populists who oppose the war and oppose the Trump regime's will. This is proof of General Flynn's reporting that he broke on InfoWars that Susie Wiles is conducting opposition research on General Flynn and his allies so that they can weaponize the government against America First patriots, just like the lawfare Donald Trump faced the past 15 years before Trump even leaves office. Like, the whole reason folks like Alex Jones have stayed on the Trump train this long is because we need him. He's our ride. He's our ticket out of prison, right? And now we're at the point where, well, you're actually going to go to prison before Trump even leaves office, before the Democrats get into power. Like Tucker Carlson said, this is more lawfare than he ever faced during the Biden administration. How is that a thing? How is that even possible? Like, this is so sick and twisted. For anyone who's still on the fence on whether or not we can trust Trump, like, they're doing exactly the things that caused us all to get back on the Trump train in 2024. Like, many of us were on the fence. A lot of people thought DeSantis might be a good choice. A lot of people liked Vivek. A lot of people liked RFK Jr. But after Butler, we put our fists up, right? We grabbed our crosses and we said, this is an attack against the people. They're trying to get through Donald Trump to get to us. Therefore, he's our guy. And a victory for Donald Trump is a victory for the people. And that's what it should have been. But Donald Trump didn't realize that he had landslide victory in his future. So he took all these attacks from the Democrats, and he was so mad at the Democrats that he said, I'm going to wear the Ring of Mordor. I'm going to go grab the Israelis. I'm going to grab Netanyahu and the Israeli lobby, and I'm going to use them as my vehicle to get payback against the Dems. So he's going to go after the Dems, but he's also going to say, fuck you to the populace, and he's going to be buddy-buddy with the same neocon ever Trumpers that opposed him since he announced his campaign on the Golden Escalator in 2015. What's up with that? Like, the fact that Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent are under investigation by the Trump administration is all you need to know. Like, if I told you this a year ago, hell, if I told you this in 2024 or 2025, you wouldn't believe me. This would sound insane to you. What are your thoughts? Like, what does this mean for us, Chet?
You know, I think it's going to have to get a lot worse before it impacts any of our small town mom and pop shop podcast pundit boys out here like the Nimrods. But it could happen eventually. This is a bad sign for freedom of speech. And obviously they're just investigations, but you can't tell me they're not targeted. And Laura threw that detail that it was before he left in there for a reason. And it's not like nobody knew Joe Kent was going to do that. They probably investigated him as a result of something that he said or did. And, you know, I hope he didn't go and leak any classified information, but I do think it's targeted. I do think that they're going after populists because they oppose what the Trump administration is going for here. I don't think it's going to stop. I think they're going to continue. I don't even know if they're going to go and get any Democrats, because what a lot of people don't know, or what they don't realize, is that if we had Kamala Harris in office right now, we'd be in the exact same position. There was one moment on the Senate floor where Kamala Harris was giving Israel the cold shoulder. They pulled her into the back room, and 20 minutes later, she came out and apologized and got on her knees for Israel. We would be in the same boat. So more to come on this, I guess. You know what? The results of the investigations, I don't think it's right to put either one of them away unless there's really something criminal that happened. But, you know, it's going to be a while before it makes it down to the young America First boys like us. And there's a lot of people standing in the way, thankfully. But there's so many of us out there. It's pretty much everybody you meet. You know, it's damn near everybody you meet that is an America First populist in under 30 age demographic. So they can't take us all. You know, they worship that GDP. And if they take us all, that line starts going down. So just keep talking, boys. Keep talking. Keep running your mouths. at a certain point, I think we'll be able to get Trump to realize that he's getting dragged around and holding Israel's pocket.
I actually beg to differ, Chet. I'm not sure if you saw a sheriff in a county in, I believe, Wisconsin this week, within the past 48 hours, I believe, threw and some of his constituents in prison for making an anti-Semitic meme about him. Essentially, it's just a picture of him with the Jewish dreadlocks and a Star of David on his face. And they're in prison right now for being anti-Semitic because of the risk they pose to actual Jewish people. So that directly affects us on the ground here. It 100% does. So yeah, I do beg to differ. I think we certainly are at risk. And if they can throw folks like Tucker and Joe Kent in prison and silence all the dissenting voices, where are we going to get our information from? How are we going to know what's going on? How are we going to be able to continue our show? It will then be baked into the algorithm. But then we won't be able to say things without getting fired or without getting put in prison. Do you disagree, Chad?
Yeah, the guy in Michigan, in Oakland County, had a warrant out for his arrest. And I think that his post might have spurred them, like, taking action about that. But I do think that you have a point there. The sheriff that said that about that image, the meme that he got edited with the Star of David on his forehead, which is hilarious, by the way. The way he spoke about it in the press conference, it definitely implied that it was illegal and that he was arrested for it. But it's not the case. So they made a post apologizing for it, but they also condemned that action and said, basically implied that people can't do that, which they can. So it's a growing problem, and it's not something that we're hearing about for the first time today. You know, we hear about these people trying to make free speech, hate speech laws all over the place in America, and we have to stand up against that. I do think that we have enough people to stand up against it in this country. You know, I'd really love to see Trump step back from the political lawfare against Tucker and Joe Kent for speaking their minds. You know, I'd have to see some really good evidence that either one of them did something wrong before I agree with what they're doing.
Certainly. And, I think silencing dissenting opinions is a form of misinformation. I want to flesh out this misinformation campaign that's going on regarding the war. My first question is Netanyahu still alive? What are your thoughts, Chad?
I honestly, I'd give it a 60-40 alive dead, because I don't think they could have killed him. I thought it was unreal since the moment somebody said it. I don't believe that they could have got him. But it's also so mysterious that he's releasing these strange videos in coffee shops. Has he even got up for a press conference? Has he even answered questions from the press or met with another world leader or anything? And I understand that they're at war and he's probably hiding, but they can at least meet in private and have notes from it or something. There's a good chance that he's not alive anymore.
Yeah, well, they actually did do a press conference, but he was in front of a green screen. His sleeves were like opening, closing themselves, so it was like clearly partially AI. And then when he took questions from the press, there were two different camera angles, so they weren't ever in the same shot. It was like, here's the pre-recorded Netanyahu video, and then they flipped to the pre-recorded interviewer, and they flipped to Netanyahu. So, I mean, all these videos that we're getting are complete bullshit. And the thing is, again, this is a misinformation campaign. They're trying to muddy the waters. This could either be because he's actually dead, but they want to posture like he's still alive to show strength, or that they don't want the enemy to know if he's dead or not, to cause confusion and possibly justify any escalatory decisions that they may make. I believe there was an Israeli president or prime minister that was dead for 8 years, but nobody realized it for 8 years. So they've done this before. And again, it's so hard to know what's real, what's not, because we live thousands of miles away on the other side of planet Earth. I thought this guy on X had a really interesting theory because I followed along with the same events that he did, and I see it all. And that's part of it. This could be part of their whole plan. He says Netanyahu died on March 8th, 2025, right? His son Yair, who posts 24/7 on X, took an exact 7-day break on X from the 8th to the 15th, which lines up precisely with the Jewish Shiva mourning period. Totally makes sense. President Trump looked visibly shaked up on 3/8. I saw this. This was like one of the first times post-war that I thought he just realized how bad of a decision he had made and that we hadn't actually won. But it could have been because Bibi's dead. Hell, who knows if President Trump would actually even know if Bibi's dead is the interesting part. Or maybe he's in on it. Now they are striking oil fields and hitting civilian infrastructure in response. So this is their retaliation. They're just not telling you why they're retaliating and going against President Trump's will, his orders, right? They wouldn't do that unless something serious happened. Sure, like a major assassination. That also lines up with the strange military council absences and event cancellations. Yeah, they were doing military council, transmissions to the Israeli people every single day. And then all of a sudden, he's not there for at least a week. At least, like, over 7 days, he's never there. But every day up to it, he was front and center every single day. And then after posting all these AI videos, he shows up. But we still don't know if it's real or not. Every video you are seeing of him after the 8th is AI assisted. Correct. So I think he has a point. And I'm going to flash over to a quick video from the great Ben Swan, who is the journalist who was on a cable news station, a local cable news station, and give a full deep dive on Pizzagate and get fired. And we haven't seen him for like 15 years until the recent Pizzagate revelations from the latest batch of Epstein files that were released. So let's check out this video of the great Ben Swan. Ben Swan, friend of the show, know him well.
There is now a new video proving that Benjamin Netanyahu is not dead, except it's fake. Hold on, it really is. But there are two issues here. There's the technical side, because this sloppily made video is clearly AI once again. And then there's the context side, because if the video were real, and it's not, it makes zero sense. Let's talk about it here, because the clip released on Sunday shows that the prime minister is in perfect health. There he is, standing in what looks like a roadside cafe, joking with the camera. At one point, he even raises his hands and counts his fingers. He only has 5, not 6 fingers like he did in the last AI video. It's also hilarious. The problem with this video, though, is that it's also clearly AI. This isn't just AI. It's sloppy AI. First of all, notice the cup of coffee here. It's filled to the point of overflowing. But then Netanyahu picks up the cup. Nothing spills, despite the coffee sloshing around inside. Then when he takes a drink, there's no visible change in the level of the drink. No spill, no ripple. Later, he reaches down to put his hand in his pocket. And the pocket, you see there, it magically jumps over to cover his hand. Never seen a pocket do that in real life. Then today, a second video surfaced. This one supposedly shows Netanyahu hiking in the hills outside of Jerusalem. Except this video is also AI. But if you watch this particular video, watch here, you see Bibi is walking over to put his hand on the back of a chair. Except he has a ring on his finger when his hand starts to move, and then magically that ring disappears as he reaches for the chair. And then, once his hand gets there, poof, the ring is back. So, both of these videos have elements that are telltale signs of AI-generated videos. What about the context? Step back and look at the bigger picture. Right now, President Donald Trump is traveling internationally, meeting with allies, attempting to manage the fallout from a war that is rapidly expanding. See, the president is calling on NATO to get involved in this war and securing the Strait of Hormuz. But Netanyahu, he isn't doing any of that. In fact, in the last week, he has met with no one, not one world leader. And it's not just meetings. Netanyahu has not held a live press conference in days. He was not present at the country's security meeting on Saturday, and he missed the war meeting today. Absent from both in the middle of a massive war in which his country is struck by missile attack daily. but he really needs a cup of coffee and a photo op at an observation deck. This is ridiculous. There have been no major televised addresses, no interviews, just short videos posted online.
Yeah, and again, it's all part of the misinformation campaign. Whether or not he's actually dead, they're certainly trying to get the public and their enemies second guessing. 100%. Do you have any reactions? I really just wanted to show that to show how completely ludicrous those videos are.
Yeah, I mean, the guy showing us the videos made a great point. They both look clearly fake, and it seems like something that the Israeli government would put out in order to muddy the waters. My thing is, if he was dead, if he is dead, we definitely wouldn't know. I think the last time a prime minister from Israel died, it took 8 years for the public to find out. So we definitely wouldn't know either way. That just leads me to believe there's a strong possibility here. But I do want to know, what are the repercussions of that? It seems like, let's say he's dead, and now the Israeli government doesn't have a leader, and they're attacking civilian infrastructure in Iran and their energy infrastructure. Is that worse? Is it worse that he's dead, or is it better? Can we install somebody that likes us more? Can we install somebody that'll listen to Trump when he says he wants to negotiate with Iran? I don't know. I need to think about it.
Absolutely. It's not easy to report on the news. I think this X post from Mark Andreessen is really great, regardless of what you think about Mark Andreessen. It's just a really relatable post. He says, my information consumption is now a quarter podcast interviews of the smartest practitioners, a quarter talking to the leading AI models, the large language models, and a quarter reading old books. The opportunity cost of anything else is far too high and rising daily. #relatable, Mark Andreessen. I couldn't agree more. It's so hard to figure out who I can trust. Like, I'm constantly sifting through bullshit, but I know I can count on InfoWars. And now these guys are like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. So I'm like, shoot, I can count on InfoWars, but maybe not to deliver all the information. So where else do I go? You start reading old books, and you realize why all these old books are being banned. And you start talking to Grok, but then you realize Grok is also programmed to trick you, and it's programmed to look at reliable sources of information, like all these bullshit peer-reviewed studies and bullshit opinion newspapers and university studies. So you kind of have to get a little bit of everything and meld it all together, congeal it all together, and make a final dissemination of what's actually going on. This next thing I want to show you here, Chet, we're talking about the misinformation campaign. We're told that the reason that we're at war for Iran, the reason that they've been a threat for over 40 years is because they chant death to America. And I just want to play this hilarious clip from their leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, speaking to his people.
گله میکنن که چرا ملت ایران میگن مرگ بر آمریکا. اولا بنده این رو برای حضرات بزرگان آمریکایی روشن کنم. مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر ترامپ و جان بولتون و پومپئو. مرگ بر اینا یعنی مرگ بر سردمداران. ما به مردم آمریکا کاری نداریم. مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر شما چندتایی که اون گروهی که دارید اداره میکنید کشورتون رو. مراد اینه. در این دوره اینان، در دوره دیگر هم دیگران. بحث ملت آمریکا نیست. ثانیاً تا وقتی که دولت آمریکا و رژیم آمریکا همین شرارت، همین دخالت، همین خباثت، همین رذالت رو در اعمال خودش داره، این مرگ بر آمریکا از دهان ملت ایران.
And listen, whether or not that's their own form of bullshit propaganda, we've never seen that video. I think we should. And even if it's, Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity going, look at this video. He's a total propagandist. He's like Kim Jong-un. He's a dictator. He's lying to his people. He's lying to us. He's trying to trick you. So be it. I think we deserve to see that video, but we never have. And this last video on the misinformation bit, then I want to get your reactions, chat. We all remember, hey, it's just 14 days to flatten the curve. Take the vax. You can't get COVID or give it to other people. It's safe and effective. Remember, we're just talking about taking out Iran's nuclear sites. And this will only be 4 days. It only lasts 4 days. At most 12, like the 12-day war. Let's watch this great video from the powerful Alex Jones that really captures the moment in time that we're living in right now.
As far as the oil prices, people just need to stop panicking. It's worth it to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So if I have to pay a little bit more for gas, I'll do that.
You got to pay the price. I mean, in order to have long-term stability.
The disruptions in the global markets are real and may be painful. But the long-term benefits, again, are incalculable.
There may be some sacrifices to be made at the pump on a temporary basis. I'm willing to pay 30% or 30 cents more at the pump to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon.
To win in life, you got to suffer short-term pain for the long-term gain, or short-term pain for long-term gain.
Freedom is not free. Americans are going to have to make some sacrifices.
This is short-term, and I'm asking you to just trust the man, okay? Trust the system, let him...
As far as the oil prices, people just need to stop panicking.
You gotta be kidding me. Trust the system equals trust the science. Short-term pain for long-term gain means safe and effective. 14 days to flatten the curve. I mean, that's just 4 days to take out their nuclear sites. And I thought we took out their nuclear sites last year. I thought so. That was the whole point of the 12-day war, wasn't it? Chet, what are your reactions to these revelations?
You know, that's a great point. Last year, Trump made a statement to the entire country that said the Iranian nuclear program has been utterly destroyed. What, did they get some more shit and create another one in the past 8 months? I don't think so. I don't think it's about the nuclear weapons here. I think it's about the Third Temple. I think it's about Greater Israel. But that's just my humble Nimrod opinion. Obviously, all these talking heads on the news are the same conglomerate that was on the news during COVID saying it's a safe and effective virus, or it's a safe and effective vaccine. Everybody needs to get it. If you don't get it, you're in for a long and deadly winter, was it? I'm pretty sure Biden was making threats. And so they're kind of doing the same thing here. Let me pull something up real quick.
Please do.
It was canceling mRNA vaccine development. More risks than benefits. So I read into this, and it wasn't all mRNA vaccine development. It was just some. But what are we seeing here? Everybody was right about COVID. It never worked. It never helped. It didn't take 14 days to flatten the curve. And now people are in trouble. People have myocarditis. People are dying of turbo cancer under 30 years old. So they were right then, and we are right now. The people on the news are still part of the same establishment, including Fox, including CNN, including MSNBC, including Newsmax, which is a rebranded Fox to try and rope in those middle-aged folks that know that Fox is propaganda. But trust your gut, people. Trust your gut. When they all have an agreed upon tagline, short-term pain for long-term gain, they're lying. It came from the people that pull the strings. That's the simplest way to put it. They're all lying, and it's disgusting. If you can't see that the Democrats and the Republicans are two sides of the same coin, and we need a political revolution in this country, there's no hope for you. You munched on paint chips your entire childhood, and now these are the consequences. You have a floppy hand that makes people laugh in the office, at school, at the gym. You got a floppy hand that makes people laugh. You got two floppy hands, and they both make people laugh, one a little bit harder than the other. But these are the consequences of you eating paint chips as a child if you still call yourself a Republican or a Democrat. And you know what? In my America, whenever the Nimrods have the reins, we are just going to send you off of a trebuchet into the Gulf of America, 30 miles out. If you can swim back, then you can stay. That's all. That's what we're going to do. I hate to put it that way, all you morons out there who were munching those paint chips, eating crayons, thinking it wasn't going to be a problem down the road. Look at where we are now. You're believing the Fox News, folks. You're believing them. You're paying $3.50 at the pump for regular gas, thinking that you're helping out the country. You're getting told by Lindsey Graham to send your sons and daughters overseas to die for Israel, to come back in coffins with American flags draped over the top. If you can't see the truth by now, you really are a Nimrod. You really are a Nimrod. So we need to change the trajectory of this country instantly, immediately, or it's going to be a long, painful death.
Exactly, chat. Like, it's the same uniparty establishment. Over and over again, we keep falling into their trap. And it's a uniparty establishment for a reason. They make you think it's the Democrats, and they make you think it's the Republicans. But they keep bouncing back and forth with supreme agility to throw you off and make you think it's one or the other, when in reality it's neither, and we need to eliminate the political dichotomy in America. The two-party system needs to be shattered into 1,000 pieces. It's the same New World Order. It's the same globalism that we keep facing over and over and over again. And just when we thought Trump had destroyed globalism and had destroyed the neocons' New World Order, he is now reinstalling it unknowingly and shifting the power scale so that now Israel is a hegemon in the Middle East and in the entire world. I want to do a brief 2-minute history on Israel's post-World War II shadow hegemony. They've had a firm grasp on the United States and the whole world, for that matter, for a long time. And the whole world at least realized that the United States was occupied by Zionism. But we are just now waking up to it. And why is that? So I'm going to read off a few headlines so you guys understand what's going on. This first one is pretty incredible. And you have to understand, this is not like left and right, Democrat, Republican. Like, Israel was created by the British Empire. The British Empire came to power after Waterloo. Who owned the British Empire after Waterloo? The Rothschilds. We've told this story many times. The Rothschilds had a spy on the battlefield at the Battle of Waterloo. Once the war was won by the British and Napoleon was defeated, their spy was the first person to return to London. He tells the stock exchange that the British had lost. The stock exchange is tanked. The Rothschilds come in and buy the entire London Stock Exchange, and therefore they now own the British Empire. And when news finally gets there that the British had actually defeated Napoleon, stock prices skyrocket, and now they're in power and they own the most powerful empire in the world. And that has nothing to do with the Jews. That has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans or liberalism or conservatism. It is all globalism, and it has always been globalism. So Israel represents globalism. This is like their beachhead. This is their embodiment on earth. This is their physical army that fights for globalism. And this is like global Jewry's physical military that they have. And by defeating Israel, or at the bare minimum, suppressing Israel's current power in the world, you're taking away a very powerful weapon for global Jewry. So this first thing I want to show you just resurfaced, but it is an old factoid that nobody ever taught you about in school. Please don't demonetize me. Please, Zuckerberg. Please, Elon. Did you know that more Christians died in Auschwitz than Jews? So this image is a direct screenshot from page 39 of the Holocaust Encyclopedia. The raw data is factually correct. It's not fabricated or altered. This data actually comes from the surviving Auschwitz death books. The official sources independently confirm the exact same breakdown. Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and the Holocaust Denial on Trial Archives. They all independently confirm the exact same breakdown by religious affiliation of the death toll. Now, we could steel man this argument and say that, the death books only covered registered prisoners, which they did. So some people say that it excludes the vast majority of arrivals, especially Jews who were allegedly selected upon arrival and gassed immediately with no registration, no death certificate. Sure. The museum itself actually explicitly warns that 900,000 plus were murdered on arrival, mostly Jews professing Judaism, while registered non-Jews, especially Polish Catholics, dominate the books because they were more likely to be used as slave labor longer. Okay, maybe that's true, but we don't have any evidence of it. But we're going with the stuff that we don't have any evidence of as the truth. That isn't how real research is conducted. That's not how real conclusions are arrived upon. We take all the evidence we know, we leave room for improvement, room for skepticism, but we go with the evidence. We didn't go with the evidence. We didn't trust the science here. And this is just the start of it. The next thing I want to show you is President Harry Truman. He writes a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt, warning that Zionist Jews would eventually turn everyone against them. I'll briefly show you this post from AF Post, great news outlet. It says, President Truman, who was a Shabbos Goy as a child in Independence, Missouri, and later supported recognizing Israel, may note that the Jews are as brutal as any underdog when they take power. Truman compared the Jews and their indifference to others' suffering and their own cruelty when they are on top to the very oppressors of the Jews themselves, implying the Jews would be no less brutal than Hitler. It's almost like we just saw this in Gaza. Truman warned that Zionist Jews would eventually turn everyone against them because of this. Here's the letter. Take a look. I think this part's pretty good. I understand that these ships were loaded and started to Palestine with American funds and American backing. They were loaded knowing that they were trying to do an illegal act. The action of some of our United States Zionists will eventually prejudice everyone against what they are trying to get done. I fear very much that the Jews are like all underdogs. When they get on top, they are just as intolerant and as cruel as the people were to them when they were underneath. I regret this situation very much because my sympathy has always been on their side. This was in August of 1947. So this is before Israel was even created. This is as they're creating the state of Israel. The next one is a report on InfoWars by the great Stuart Rhodes. Go watch it in your own time. But essentially, we now have evidence that Israeli dual citizen brothers reportedly opened the doors to the Capitol on January 6th. Then they disappeared from any insurrection investigations, never to be named by the DOJ. It's almost like they're behind everything. And again, this isn't about people who have Jewish ancestry. This is about organized global Jewry. This is about globalism. And what Israel represents is the headquarters of globalism and their ability to manipulate the world to their will. The next story, a great one from Alex Jones. Again, if you ever think Alex Jones is bought and paid for, you're just fucking retarded. There's only one developed country that is not heading into a demographic crisis and is above replacement birth rates. That same ethno-state lobbies other Western nations to open their borders to the third world invasion. This is Israel. And now we get to modern day. This is from March 20th, 2026. Our great Attorney General Pam Bondi says, "Today we sued Harvard University for enabling and even encouraging anti-Semitism on its campus. The Trump administration has been abundantly clear. Any school that receives federal funds risks losing those funds if they permit blatant discrimination. This is what they told us at first, is if you are an illegal citizen, if you are a student visa citizen that is on a college campus protesting, we'll send you back. And like, that's a free speech violation, but you know what? They're on a visa, so we're cool with getting rid of anyone who's not a full-time citizen. But then she says, this has nothing to do with the first line. We sued Harvard. So this is weaponization of the government. This is lawfare against Harvard because they're enabling or encouraging anti-Semitism. So they're allowing their students to protest the war in Gaza. No other group of people has the power to do that. No other group of people has the power to do that. Nobody else is doing that. But this is the same shit that we faced with the liberals. Before it was, say anything about the blacks, we'll send you to prison. That never really happened, but you'd get fired from your job and your whole life would be ruined, certainly. And they're like, no, let's make it about the Asians. And they're like, wait, no, the Asians are way too smart and successful. Let's make it about other people, and they make it really hard for them to get in college anymore. And then they make it about, the Muslims. And now the Republicans get in power, and they do the same frickin' thing with the Jews. And then we have this great clip from my hero, Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the ADL, and he says, anyone identified as an anti-Semite should be targeted with exploding pagers, similar to what the Israelis use to target members of Hezbollah. So his solution to anti-Semitism is to massacre people in the United States. What other group of people can get away with saying that without going to prison? Not anyone I know. And this final one is really what's been pissing me off recently. She went on the Tucker Carlson show. Just in the past 2 weeks, her story's incredible. She's also smoking hot. And if she's listening, please DM me. I will meet you anywhere at any time. And I will have your next child. Wait, you'll have my next child. Whatever. You can put it in my butt. I don't know. Whatever it takes, I'm interested. Anyways, Carrie Prejean Baller says, President Trump officially removes me from the Religious Liberty Commission for exercising my religious liberty. She's the only Catholic woman who opposes Zionism, and she was removed as a prelude to the Iran war. She gets this email from the White House informing her that her position on the Religious Liberty Commission has been terminated. She doesn't hear from Donald Trump because he's ashamed, and he knows she's a good person, and he would obviously fire someone at ease and talk about it with the media, but he knows he's wrong here, so that's why he had one of his lackeys send her a stupid little email. Well, essentially what the Religious Liberty Commission did was they said Catholicism and Christianity and biblical Christianity is wrong. And you don't have the religious liberty to believe that. You're unable to exercise that belief. And this is us cutting the head off the Hydra. And soon we will go after Catholic churches who dissent from Christian Zionism. What other group of people, what other ideology, what other race or religion can get away with this? This isn't a race. This isn't a religion. This is an ideology. This is evil. This is Satanism. This is globalism. This is everything we've been fighting against for decades. This is everything we've been fighting against since the beginning of humanity. This is everything that Jesus Christ died for, right? Like, it's time to wake up, America. Chet, do you have any reactions? Like, how long have you realized the true immense grasp, the stranglehold of Israel over the United States? And what are your reactions to these posts?
I think it makes sense what they're doing. I think they're acting in their own self-interest, which makes sense to me. The only problem is, whenever we say let's target anybody who is an anti-Semite with an exploding pager, the only problem is they make the definition of anti-Semite. So for them, just like on Harvard's campus, that probably means protesting against the war in Gaza. That probably means protesting against the war in Iran, like that girl in the White House. So when you can expand the definition to mean anything you want and target anybody you want, that turns into a problem. You know, if you're a murderer, that means you were found guilty of killing another person. If you are a manslaughterer, that means you did it on accident. But to be an anti-Semite, all you have to do is be called an anti-Semite. You could say nothing about Jewish people or the religion or anything, which is who Semitic refers to in the modern age, and be talking strictly about the actions of the government of secular Israel and be labeled an anti-Semite. This can't happen. This can't happen. It's like we were talking about earlier. We've seen them push these hate speech laws all over the place. It's just a shame that it's taken any sort of foothold. You know, the ADL was founded in remembrance of Leo Frank, who was a Jewish guy who raped a girl and blamed it on a black person. And the KKK didn't even believe him. They trusted the black guy. They lynched him. And that's why the ADL was founded. So obviously we know where their interests lie, in protecting Jewish people no matter what. No matter what they do, right or wrong, we can't persecute them because the ADL is protecting them. But I don't know what our path out of this is. You know, we have so many young people that know the truth, that are moving in the right direction, that support the movement in the correct ways. I think we have as good a shot as any. We just need to put our foot down at any of these people who are trying to implement laws or amendments with regards to anti-Semitism. It's a massive problem. It's a massive infringement on free speech. And you have to be willing to go to jail to fight for your right for that. You have to be willing to die a martyr. So this could get pretty ugly. But always remember, all you Nimrods out there, it's not your fault that you don't like this, what's happening. It's not your fault. You're not strange. You're not weird.
You're a patriot.
They are the ones that are doing it. They are the ones that are pushing the buttons. So it's literally not your fault. These people are outlandish. They're crazy, and we need to stop them. It's unfortunate. You sound crazy when you talk about it, but it has to stop.
Absolutely. And the ADL is not just protecting Jewish people. In fact, they're not protecting Jewish people. They don't care if you're Jewish. They don't care if you're ethnically Jewish. That's not what it's about. It's like, do you believe in the cause? In some ways, it's a religious cause. I'd argue Bibi isn't even very religious. He is ideological. He is infected by this mind virus. You could even say he's possessed by a demon. I wouldn't say protection's the right word. That almost seems too positive, too friendly. This is blanket immunity to evil, to anti-Christian satanic acts. All these evil globalists are protected and immune from prosecution, no matter how nefarious their actions are. As long as they bend the knee to the Zionist establishment, the globalist neocon uniparty, nothing's going to happen to them. And we thought when we elected Donald Trump to the presidency, the third time around, that he would actually go after the bad guys. We would actually see deep state indictments. And when's the last time we talked about that? Our first Nimrod Pod Live that we filmed in a studio in on Labor Day? No, Ed Martin, who was heading up the weaponization working group, was fired from that position. Now he's just a Trump lackey that handles the pardon office. There's no more weaponization working group. They don't care about lawfare. They don't care about attacks against populist America First, 1776 conservatives. That's all out the door. Nobody's getting in trouble if they bend the knee to power. And this is honestly a religious war. This is people submitting to Satan, giving in to the Antichrist. It's not the cool thing to do typically isn't to be a Christian. typically isn't to have morals. But it's the right thing to do. It's the brave thing to do. You're not, and I will say, these people think they're protected by submitting to globalism and global Jewry and the Antichrist, but there's only one path to salvation, and that's Jesus Christ. The only path to salvation is through Jesus Christ. So I suggest all you globalists out there surrender to Jesus Christ today. Surrender to life with him, because if you don't, you are doomed for eternity. The rest of us that profess our allegiance to God and admit that we need a Savior, we have eternity waiting for us. And we will be vindicated in the end, because our Savior already won, and your Messiah hasn't even arrived. In fact, he already did arrive, but you rejected him. So it's funny that they name this secular modern state Israel, because if you ever read the Bible, Israel's only good for one thing, and that's rebelling against God. And that's why Abraham's covenant could not be fulfilled until God sent his own son down to earth to bear flesh, die on a cross, and be resurrected. So that every single one of us, every single human who is created equally in God's image, can now be redeemable and can be acceptable in the eyes of a holy God, so that the veil could be torn and we could all have a direct relationship with God. But those of you that cling on to this modern state of Israel, this little I Israel, are the same people rebelling against God and the same people that are doomed for eternity. Christ is king. Throw me in jail, Jonathan Greenblatt. Come after me, Pam Bondi. Fuck you. Christ is king. Jesus is Lord. That's all that matters. We all need a savior. Any final thoughts on Israel before I go to our last fun story and close it out?
No, I think I've both said and heard enough about Israel for the day. You know, I'm getting kind of tired of these people in my information stream at all times. But all you Nimrods out there, just remember, we are going to win eventually. We're going to win one day. Jesus is with us. Make sure you're with him.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll do a whole hour on Israel. Alex Jones says it all the time. I'll just be an obsessed Israel freak. I'll get more views. Guess what? They are taking over our country. They have occupied our government, and we have no choice but to talk about them. So they're getting exactly what they wanted, and it's all going to backfire on them. I promise you that. Last story is a fun one. Breaking news from the great Brianna Morello, the former host of the American Journal on InfoWars. The city of Dallas, Texas has begun removing its Rainbow Pride crosswalks. The action follows an October 2025 directive from the Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who ordered Texas Department of Transportation to eliminate all non-standard decorative pavement markings, including those conveying political or social or ideological messages, citing safety concerns and violations of federal and state roadway standards. Cities that failed to comply face potential loss of state transportation funding. And then, someone decided to do something about it. Colin Rugg posted this yesterday, I believe, March 23rd, 2025. We have the city of Dallas has begun removing all gay pride rainbow crosswalks from the city. The move comes after Texas Governor Greg Abbott made the order back in October. About time. So allegedly, they're actually going after this. But then last night at 3 a.m., this guy was arrested for trying to respray the crosswalks. Like they were literally the cops were just parked out there waiting for one of those flaming homos to repaint the crosswalks, and they literally arrested him for violations. And I think it's pretty funny. I have some contacts in Dallas. So Lou Stump actually flew down to Dallas, and he picked up a lavalier set. And Lou Stump's gonna hook these puppies up to his shirt. And he's going to interview some of these homos. And he's going to get their point of view on the story. So if you're listening right now, comment below. Should Lou go talk to the gays in Oak Lawn? Should he get a sense of the pulse in the field? I think he should. And while I'm at it, I'm going to ask them what their thoughts are on the Iran war. And our tax dollars funding the Iran war. And then when they say they oppose the war, I'm going to say, why do you oppose funding for gay crosswalks? It's going to be good. If you want to see Lou Stump in the field talking to gays, like and repost this episode. Are you excited about that, Chet?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the opinions. Maybe we find something that I can agree on with all the gay people in their crosswalks. But, Greg's right. That's a safety concern. Imagine a bunch of gay people getting out there to take a picture with a drone and just getting plowed by a truck because it's the middle of the fucking street. So if you want to have a rainbow, put it on like the grass or something. You spray it on your own lawn. We don't need these in the middle of the street. I am very excited to see Lou get out there, though. It's going to be high-quality content. I'd love to reach out to the communities, all the connections that the Nimrods have around the world. And Dallas is a good place to start.
Let's find out if the gays are real MIGAs or not. That's the question at the end of the day. So we'll be out in the streets. And you know what? While I'm in Dallas, maybe I'll just go to Grapevine to check out the CPAC conference. CPAC USA 2026 is in Grapevine, Texas. So maybe I'll just scoot on over to Grapevine and ask the people there what their thoughts are on the war in Iran. It's called a 2-for-1 special, Chet. 2 for 1. 2 for 1 at the tackle. 2 for 1 special. So be on the lookout. You might have some man-on-the-street content coming from the Nimrods starting in just a few days. Now, I want to do a quick plug. Ultra Methylene Blue. If you want to support patriots like Alex Jones, if you want to support InfoWars, keep them on air as long as possible, and then fund the backup network, you should shop at thealexjonesstore.com/Nimrod. And why? Because they have the highest quality supplements for the best value on the market. Ultramethylene Blue. I took it this morning. And I'll tell you what, when I got that ultramethylene blue in my system, I could feel it, a tingling sensation down in my plums. That methylene blue dye gave my plums a nice bluish, swollen hue. The sun was dancing on my plums. They got all ripe and ready for the picking. Hell, I'm going to take my methylene blue plums down to the farmer's market and sell them at retail. I'm gonna grab my methylene blue plums and take a nice big old bite out of them. Let the juices flow down my chin. The blue juices down my chin. It's called recycling the methylene blue. So please shop at thealexjonesstore.com/Nimrod for the best selection of Patriot apparel and supplements on the market to keep Alex Jones and the Nimrods on the air. Now, Nimrods, we will be interviewing Tennessee governor candidate Monty Fritz next week on Monday, March 30th. Mark your calendars. We will be uploading the episode across all platforms on Wednesday, April 1st at 9 a.m. Central Time. You do not want to miss this. Follow at TheNimrodPod on X and turn on post notifications so you don't miss it. And please let us know in the comments who you want us to interview next. We want to thank Primal Core again for sponsoring this podcast. God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching. Be a real MIGA. Real MIGA roll call. All hail President Netanyahu. And we'll see you guys next week.